Welcome everybody back to WTCtv, and we're here for a little impromptu session because we have some big news in the trading card world. This past weekend, a Logan Paul Pokemon, the Pikachu Illustrator card, sold for 16.5 million, just a little bit under $16,492,000. It's the
That's
most
it?
expensive. Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
just a mere $16,492. The most expensive trading card ever, the most expensive TCG card ever, the most expensive Pokemon card ever. But why are Tony and I, wrestling guys, talking about a Pokemon card? Well, it's not a wrestling card. It's not a wrestling memorabilia card.
Mm-mm.
It is a piece of event-worn wrestling memorabilia because Logan Paul, he took that card, and it doesn't matter the value of it. He took that card, he put it in a diamond encased holder, and he wore it to the ring for his WrestleMania debut and a couple of subsequent times after that. So
Mm-hmm.
that all of a sudden takes it out of the wrestling card world, but into the wrestling memorabilia event-worn world. And there was a bit of confusion on that because someone said, "Oh, look, the highest wrestling memorabilia card ever." And I said, no, it's not the highest wrestling memorabilia card ever. It's a Pokemon card.
Yeah.
However, it is a very vital piece of wrestling event worn memorabilia, just like an urn, just like a robe, just like a boot. The analogy is real simple. You go into a locker room and there's two sets of yellow boots on a shelf, right?
Yep.
Hogan walks by the first one, grabs the second set, and wears them to WrestleMania 1. Now, that first set of boots sitting on the shelf are worth whatever a set of used for yellow boots are worth. But the Hogan worn ones have the pedigree because they were worn at this event by Hogan. So
Correct.
now they're worth $250,000 plus or whatever it is. And there's no denying that Logan Paul in his WrestleMania debut, and he's going to be a big name in wrestling, anything he would wear would be considered event-worn memorabilia, including a Pokemon card. And the fact that it's such an expensive Pokemon card, obviously brings us together to chat about it. So that's why we're here, because Ben and I are doing the That's the Ticket, and we talk about robes, and we talk about all this other stuff. But this is by far, by a wide margin, the biggest wrestling event worn memorabilia sale ever. So what say you, sir, to this bit of news?
Exciting, man. I think it's real exciting. You said that he will be a big star one day.
He
I
already
think
is.
he already is that.
Yeah,
He's
yeah, yeah. He signed.
yeah. And I'm curious. I'm wondering if this was long-term game plan here of like strategically trying to play out something where I'm going to invest in something and then turn around in a few years, obviously going to try to sell it for a profit. But do you think the sale, I'm going to just turn around and ask you the question in here. Do you think the sale is solely based on the fact that it's a Pokemon card and it just attracts the people from that genre, that world? Or do you think there's a level of because the fact that he wore it to WrestleMania, it's now become part of the wrestling, memorabilia history. It's
Yeah.
now an event worn type of thing. Do we get
Honestly, to answer
I'm
your
curious how
question,
he bid on it. I'm
I,
curious to know
I
the people who bid on it, what their level of interest of that card beyond just being Pokemon.
okay, so let me take it in two sections. First, we'll talk about why it went for what it did, then we'll talk about the guy that bought it. So, um, there was a huge amount of promotion behind this. I mean, Golden had it on his
Yes.
Netflix show. Logan Paul was talking about it everywhere. So, you can't discount the fact that Logan Paul himself, from a marketing point of view, did a bang up job to make sure everybody and their brother-in-law knew about it.
Yep.
So that was a big deal. Now, did he buy the card as an investment? Logan Paul's not a dumb guy. You know what I mean? He's making money and he knows how to use social media to his advantage. But I'm going to take a step back, and I don't want to call into question the legitimacy of anything. It was a legit auction. Ken Golden's not going to risk his business on anything underhanded. But there's been a lot of talk since about, there's a few weird things potentially about the way things went down. Um, First and foremost is that the winning bidder was there at the auction. So was the underbidder. They were both there at Golden as this all went down. And, Logan Paul had offered to deliver to the winning bidder in person wherever he was. And he only had to walk about 8 feet to, to meet the guy and say, here it is. Now, the winning bidder, for those that don't know, is AJ Scaramucci. This is the son of Anthony Scaramucci, who was a White House guy. He was director of communications for a while. But just to give you an idea of his backstory, this is a very wealthy family. Scaramucci was a Goldman Sachs guy, and he started several investment capital businesses, the biggest one being Skybridge Capital in 2005. By the time he had the business up and running 10 years later in 2015, they were handling about $9 billion worth of assets. So young AJ, the son, who's a mover and shaker himself, grew up in that world. So there's no question with respect to the affordability. You know, these are
Yeah.
money people, legit people that could definitely afford the card. But if you watched this, it was very much sort of a bit of a marketing thing because Logan Paul took advantage of the forum to introduce his new ripping service called Rip It. Um,
Sure.
and Scary Moochie Jr., the guy that bought the card, he's just announced a new, very high-end, very limited um, collectibles business where he's going after the rarest of the rare, the hardest to find stuff. And by his own admission, this would be one of them. He's also looking to get a copy of the Declaration of Independence because apparently there's a few of them kicking around. He's also looking for rare T-Rex dinosaur fossils. So this is a guy that's going into the nooks and crannies to find things. Now, was there anything questionable about it? I don't want to say. I don't want to suggest anything. I wonder if the buyer was known to Logan Paul before all this, because that begs the question, like,
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah.
yeah, if I've got something big to sell and you happen to win it, a lot of people are gonna say, well, wait a minute, you know, uh, these guys are potentially in league. I don't know that. I mean, the winner, AJ Scaramucci, made it very clear that he wasn't going to lose this. He was there because he intended to win it, and he feels very strongly about the collectibles market now. So this speaks to why would someone spend this kind of bread on a Pokemon card or anything else? And you asked, was it because it was a Pokemon card? Yes, Pokemon is the biggest TCG
Sure.
name going, but it was also because of Logan's efforts on this. And of course, you got Smiley Ken Golden in the middle of it,
Right.
trying to make sure that he has the best, and he accomplished it, the highest trading card of all time. So when you have these three cats together that are very smart, entrepreneurial types, you're going to get a result like this. Now, begs the question, was it an overspend at 16.5 million? Well, time will tell, like when you have the most expensive card in the world, like up until now, I think it was the Logomon, Kofi and LeBron, and it is sold for like 10 or 11 million or something like that. And if you take the top two baseball cards, your Honus Wagner and your Mantles, those two combined get you to about $16 million. But I think those two cards, those two sports cards, have more potential down the way. But when you have the number one of anything in the world, it becomes a dick swinging contest. Someone else wants
Mhm.
to have it. And when you have a guy who's, noted objection is to get the rarest of the rare, and this is a guy, again, Scaramucci Jr., that's not a dumb guy, not a dumb guy. He lives in the investment capital world. He's had quite a few successes. His dad came on and said he was very proud of his son, taking a big swing like this. Um, you know, I would say, yeah, maybe it's a year, maybe it's 5 years, but when you have the best of something, there's always someone with more money than you that might want it. So, all around, I think this was very positive for all the people involved. I mean, Logan Paul comes out of it like a bandit. He paid
Of
five
course he
something,
does.
yeah,
Yeah.
$5 million, and he sells it for like 10 million more.
I think all parties involved come out like a bandit in this one. I mean,
100%.
even as the investor himself who purchased it, Golden obviously comes out with their commission on that. Logan Paul comes out looking, like he's a genius for what he invested in a while back
Of
ago.
course.
Yeah, so everybody wins on that one, and I think the hobby itself wins
Yeah.
overall because it just shows that you know. Again, I'm going to go right back to what I've been saying for decades now. It's like that. It's a stock market type atmosphere. It always
Yeah.
has been. People have need traded trading cards, when to buy, when to sell.
Yeah.
It's always been that way. And now we're dealing with big numbers, really big numbers now.
Well, you're dealing with guys in the investment capital world that are referring to the cards as an asset class. We've
Of
always said
course.
that,
Well,
you know?
they didn't look at it that way before
No.
though. People didn't look at it that way. There was no, outside Gary V's and these the kind of people like that are out there looking to invest and thinking, oh wow, collectibles is something I should probably get
Sure.
myself into. And I think that that's happened. And we've been talking about this on this show for quite some time now that it just takes someone with deep pockets to go
Mhm.
out there and make a change.
And there's lots of these guys. Like AJ Scaramucci is just one wealthy young guy that has a
Sure.
vision and sees the potential. There's going to be more.
Yeah.
There's going to be more in the future, and as this hobby grows, and when I say the hobby, I mean the overall trading card hobby, because this isn't a wrestling card specific event, but it is a wrestling event worn memorabilia event. And nothing else is
Even,
going to come
even if
close
it
to
wasn't
16
that,
million.
even if it wasn't that, it's still worth noting the fact that it has a trickle effect where it could go
Yeah,
off to other aspects. We are in the wrestling card worlds like that, so we like to see that market grow. But we've already got these explosions in every other sport for the most part. And then who's to say it doesn't happen in music trading cards or other
mm,
non-sport type trading cards, for historical pieces like, I got to have a trading card from the very first televised TV show, something like that. Who knows? I mean,
yeah.
it can go on and on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it shows obviously the size of Pokemon. Up here, we have these businesses that have these events where the young kids come in the evening and they sit at tables, and there's hundreds of them, and they're
Yeah,
all
here
playing.
too.
Yeah, yeah, and
There's there's all kinds of gaming going around here. Pokemon crazy everywhere.
yeah,
I own an all pro wrestling store. I don't sell anything other than pro wrestling, but not a week goes by that I don't have somebody either stop in or call to ask, do you guys actually, I know you're a wrestling store, but you sell any Pokemon?
yeah. Yeah, a place opened up just around the corner from me. It's called Beerly Cards, and that's a new kind of game specifically. And I went in there, but he had supplies. He had sheets, and he was paying the same thing I was, but so I couldn't do business with him. I'm like, when he tried to sell me one, it's like, no, no, you don't seem to understand. I buy a lot of these things, so can you get me a break on them? But he couldn't. We found out that my supplier could probably do a better job for him than he was getting from his supplier. But yeah, it just speaks to what's going on across the board, just a lot of excitement, big numbers, like $16.5 million, Tony. Like, come on. That's like crazy, crazy money, like some of the best art pieces in the world don't go for that, you
So
know.
here's something I want, then here's what I also want to ask you then too. We know that there's a lot of hype that went around it and that, obviously Logan did a lot of work in that. Golden actually can tap into with the client list they have of people who are big spenders, obviously that,
Sure.
Logan Paul probably doesn't have. Someone probably, as you said, maybe people contacted Logan directly. What if you had that card, Paul? You were the one that wanted to sell that card. Does that card hit 16 million?
No, no, because who's Paul Anand? How am I
Doesn't
going
matter
to,
though. So
hmm,
does the card no longer does the card itself no longer matter in that sense, or matters a
well,
lot less because
once
it's
you go to Golden
Paul
or once you
Anand
go to
has it?
Heritage, you've got the best guys in the business working for you. Once you go to one of those two guys.
Sure,
But the Logan Paul factor himself, harping it up every day on social. Even at the WWE events, he was
sure.
talking about it, So there that
Why can't you be a green shirt guy sitting in the front row with your logo with your Pokemon card toting
well,
it
I'm
on?
not even green shirt guy. Green shirt guy is a guy who's known. But if you're a nobody, and all of a sudden, like normally these auctions, you don't know who the seller is, you don't know who the buyer is. They're certainly not in the same room together when the auction goes down,
Sure.
and it's done at arm's length. That's why you're hearing a bit of a buzz as to, well, hang on a second here. And I don't want to get into the fractional portion of it, but apparently the card was sold fractionally for a portion to a portion of people ahead of time, and some of these people are piping up now saying, well, where's my money? Um,
Yeah.
and again, I don't want to call into question anything here because I'd like to believe that it was all above board. I read something that Logan Paul himself might have been betting on the future of it, trying to go short. You know how these short sellers sometimes they bet on things and where they're going to land
Sure.
because you can bet on anything in this world now. I've learned.
Yes.
You can bet on whether it's going to rain or not in the next 5 minutes. So again. I don't want to suggest anything untoward, and I don't think Ken Golden, would not run everything by the book. And all of us that were watching it could see as it was going down, so it was all legitimate. We could see every half hour the bid going up until AJ Scaramucci won it. Um, but no, I think that if I had the card or you had the card, we'd do okay with it, but it wouldn't attract the same amount of people because Logan Paul is just out there, like he's one of the original guys on social that made a name for himself, him and his brother, both.
It makes me want to question then, how much of the value of that card is actually the card?
Well, it's like how much of the rock black prism is the card, or how much is it because it's a prism black 101? You know,
True,
you could
but
you can try and figure out why these things are happening.
the difference here is that it was sold as it was sold. There's no name, big name attached to it.
Right.
It sold.
But that I do believe that contributes to it. Like, I mean, just under the radar, a day later, a whole WCW set of All-Stars sold, right? All 103 cards, every one of them graded. Um, that's a $50,000 sale. Should be based on the individual value, and he sold it for 20, and all of us are shaking our heads. All of us in the know that are like, hang on, this guy left a lot of money on the table if he would have done it piecemeal. So my point I'm making is that one day to the next, I mean, 16.5 on Monday, you know, might be 18,000 or $18 million today, might be $10 million by the weekend. It all depends on who's there, who's not. But yeah, Logan Paul being there and hyping it up the way he did absolutely made a difference in my book.
I'm just curious to know what that dollar what that equals to. Like, if there was no Logan Paul, does that card only go for
Well,
5 million?
yeah, I can't say for sure. We were just guessing, right, as to what
Yeah,
we,
of course, of course.
it's like anything when we're pricing nowadays, in the early days, I could be a little more real about pricing, whereas nowadays with the flux, with as many cards that are out there, with so many different ways of looking things, so many different circumstances affecting pricing one day to the next. But we're here just because like you say, it's not only wrestling, it's the highest selling trading card of all time. Like $16.5 million. That beats the Honus, that beats the Mantle, that beats the basketball guys. It's pretty fucking remarkable if you
Well,
know.
I mean, wait and see when that Mantle PSA 10 hits the market. If
Yeah.
ever,
Oh, yeah,
that's a
sure.
that's projected to be a $40 million card.
Yes, yes, yes. The baseball guys are just shaking their heads going, guys, don't get too comfortable with this because
Yeah, but I mean, that's until that happens.
until that happens.
Yeah.
Right. You know. So that's it.
Yep.
We wanted to chat a little quickie to sort of just acknowledge, congratulate Logan Paul and AJ Scaramucci and Golden. These guys work very hard and these are very smart guys. That's why they're as successful as they are. And I have respect for that. I have great respect for guys that do in life. You know what I mean? Uh, and a lot of people are saying, wow, who would spend $60 million on a piece of cardboard? Well, hold that thought, because we
Yeah.
just
Well,
$16 million before you know it could be a deal.
I asked them people like, why would you spend $16 on that meal for crying out loud? I
Yeah,
don't know.
exactly.
Yeah. So I get it, but yeah, I'm interested in hearing what people have to any comments about this. What you guys think about the sale in general. What do you think how it affects the hobby overall? Is this going to be a record? It's going to stand for some time? I'd just love to hear people's opinions about this. It's always interesting to hear how people take stuff like this and you're gonna get the conspiracy theorists come out. It's like that. Well, this couldn't have happened. Da, da, da. I get that. Kind of weed that stuff out. But I'm just kind of curious to hear what people have to say about the overall sell itself
Yeah,
and how they think it's going to further affect the overall market as a collectible.
yeah. And from us guys in the wrestling world that are not just into cards, but into event worn and robes and boots and all the high end stuff, that's very interesting to see. Like in my opinion, it'll be a while before a wrestling collectible, gets to $16.5 million again, but maybe not. We just don't know.
Never know. Hey, we talked about this in the wrestling car world. We thought, that six-figure car was the first, and that can be a long time before we see a six-figure card again. It's like that.
It was
I
18
got,
months.
and I'm like, I think we'll see it in about a year. It's like
Yeah.
that, and we did. And
Yeah,
and,
we
and
did. And we did. And we
um,
know we
hey,
have these WrestleMania patch cards coming out in royalty or whatever the high
sure.
end set is. I've lost track with what Topps is putting out and when, because every time I hear or
I think
read
I
that
think
something's coming out, it doesn't.
Topps has lost track of what they're doing.
Yeah, the last I heard is that we're getting Chrome 2026. I'm like, Wait a minute. I heard about Exalted. I heard about Universe. I heard about this. I mean, I got to stop reeling the dailies because,
Yeah.
no offense to the guys that are writing it, but they're just not given information they can rely on. You go
Nope.
onto Topps website and you're told one thing one day to the next, and that's where all
Yep.
the news is coming from. No one else knows anything more than what Topps decides to tell us on their site. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, those patches, they're going to be big. Are they going to be $16.5 million big? No. Are they going to
No,
be $100,000 Hulk Hogan Wrestling All-Stars big? I doubt it,
I doubt it.
but it could happen, you know. But just rest assured, Tony, we're here and we'll let
Yep.
everybody know. We love
Yep.
doing this shit, and stuff like this, big sales, nice like we had the other day with this Pokemon card. It's like, well, we better get on there and have a chat about it.
Yep. Better do it.
Yeah.
So, all right, man.
All right, brother. Nice seeing you. And thank you, everyone. This is Hot Topic on WTCtv. See, it's so hard to say. WTCtv. Um,
Slow down.
yeah, WTC. Yeah, we'll see all you guys soon.
Yep. All right, we're out.